Hey folks, I find myself here on Vancouver Island, and who would have thunk that I'd find a vegan-friendly winery? Well, here I am at 40 Knots with owner and winemaker Layne Craig. So we're going to learn a little bit about their sustainability initiatives and why you chose to use vegan winemaking practices. Over to you, Layne.
10 years in the Comox Valley. Uh, we purchased this property, vineyard and winery, and began making our changes to traditional farming, organic, sustainable farming. It's been a long road. It hasn't been easy, and information is not always as easy and readily accessible as we might have thought.
Right.
Looking at the farming methods that I grew up with as a prairie kid farmer, traditional crop rotations, complementary crops, not using chemicals, and using nature to our advantage has been our biggest push. Not to say that I don't like technology. We definitely use a lot of that too to substantiate our changes and our practices. Not being not having to dress like a spaceman to go out in your crop by putting on a lot of chemicals that I'm not saying that are wrong, they're just not for us.
Okay, that's
To
fair.
keep it very simple and very clean, and using everything that we can at our disposal that at minimum is organic certified
hmm
has helped us grow larger crops, cleaner crops, and make better wine. Wine is not made in the back of a winery. Wine is made in the vineyard.
Yes.
Period.
Yes, I love that philosophy. And now on your website, it says that you combine plant-based winemaking practices with biodynamic, which sometimes can be at odds with one another because biodynamics uses some interesting witchcrafty practices such as cow horn preparation 500, is it? Where they use a cow horn filled with manure, but that's not something that you decided to incorporate. Can you explain that to us?
So, I mean, the Rudolf Steiner book, we can read it back from. There's some wonderful and great practices in there. I agree with the most of it.
Mm.
Um, but when it comes to some of the sprays and the teeing processes that require us using animal parts that have never lived here, will never live here, and are not any part of our ecosystem, there was no scientific backup for me to do that with grapevines.
Right.
So, uh, achieving almost a full audit on our biodynamic, we elected, even though we tried to persuade the bodies to change
The certifying
and
bodies.
the certifying bodies to look at it differently, and I understand why they didn't. But nevertheless, we have, with the exception of that, we are at that borderline of completely biodynamic without using the plant-based parts. Not only in the not only in the farming of keeping it clean, the winemaking, the process that does happen in the back when we crush the grapes, when we ferment the wine, when we age the wine. I have a lot of sensitivities and a lot of different wines and products bother me if they have certain products in them.
Mhm.
So for us to keep it that simple and make wine from grapes, sometimes using yeasts, sometimes not, by keeping our sulfite levels as low as possible, way below the legal requirements, I'm able to work with my wine and drink my wine.
So heads up for those of you who say you suffer from headaches due to the sulfur in wine. This might be a winery you're going to want to visit because they will be much more enjoyable for you both while you're drinking and afterwards.
I sure hope so. The gluten and vegan aspect, uh, I stumbled. Honestly, I stumbled into it. I'm not gonna say that my destination was there.
Right.
Uh, by not using a number of different products in the winemaking
Mm-hmm.
process, in the enology process, and in our farming practices, um, I was asked one day, "Are you gluten? Are you vegan?"
Mm.
I said, "Well, I don't know." So we brought a professional in to go through our practices, and he says, "Yeah, you guys are gluten and vegan because you're not using those certain parts and pieces in your winery, in your knowledge of practices, your winemaking, or your growing." Which is great because I have lots of friends that are gluten free and vegan, and it only makes sense to continue processing down that road and keeping that certification.
The other really cool thing about 40 Knots is that they have a line of skincare products which use some of the red wine
Yes.
in them and are completely vegan friendly. So you'll walk away with a few bottles of wine and some skincare. You know that I assume it's the resveratrol that's supposed to make your skin look fabulous.
Especially with the Pinot, we keep the skins from Pinot Noir.
Right.
We dry the skins from Pinot Noir,
Okay.
and we pulverize them into very fine flour. We also make grapeseed oil extract for the process.
Oh.
Hey, I'm a Saskatchewan farmer. I don't want to waste a darn thing. If
Well,
there's an
that's
opportunity to
sustainable.
use it,
Right.
absolutely, using all those processes. Now, I know at the beginning you asked about sustainability.
Yes.
And sustainability, it's a bigger word than I think people sometimes understand.
Mm-hmm.
Our largest focus on sustainability is not only in our farming, our winemaking practices, it's in our community. If we don't have a sustainable community,
Yeah.
sustainable members, sustainable practices, sustainable business, and sustainable financials within our community, I am just a crazy person with a lot of wine.
Well, and there's so many levels of sustainability as you talk about.
Wow.
So I love that you are utilizing it in a very holistic manner. You're sustainable in your vineyards. You're sustainable in the production facility because they're moving towards working primarily with steel and amphora, so clay amphorae, and doing away with the oak casks. Those are oak barrels because those are very expensive and they only last a few years. So your sustainability really works in all aspects of the business as it should.
Absolutely, and I mean, with all the things you mentioned, and again, the sustainability involves our community,
Right.
our environment, our farming practices, our staff. The people are the most important part of sustainability.
So they're really embracing the 3 R's of recycling in a way here. The reduce, reuse, recycle. They're using all of those to make their business truly sustainable and just some fantastic wines. You'll want to come and check out the natural wine that they have because it is a very old world style of natural wine. It won't be the natural wine that you see where it's all cloudy and is a bit funky tasting. Very, very interesting. Layne, thank you so much.
This is fun.
This has been fabulous, and we're going to go take some pictures out in the vineyard now.
Cheers.
Cheers. That is a very nice rosé.